You know when a top driver speaks bluntly and it lands like a punch? That's exactly what happened after the race. Lewis didn't sugarcoat it. The car we have is not at the level of this team. Right away, that line tells you the problem isn't just a few tenths here and there. It's a deeper mismatch between expectation and reality. In the race, he finished behind where Ferrari should expect to be, and even joked about sparks and having to back off the brakes because they were overheating. Small, vivid details that actually reveal bigger mechanical limits. Those on-track moments and Lewis's straight talk matter because when your lead driver publicly questions whether the car matches the team's standards, every fan, engineer, and rival sits up and pays attention. So what did he actually say? In short, the upgrades the team has brought haven't delivered as hoped. Qualifying has been a recurring weakness, and the rear axle remains a stubborn limit compared to teams that have taken clear steps forward. When the guy who lives on the knife edge of performance says that you need to be at 105% just to be competitive, he's telling you the baseline has shifted and Ferrari is being left to chase. That explains why, even when strategy and pit stops are solid, the team can still find itself fighting for 4th, 5th, or 6th rather than podiums. But here's the human part. Lewis wasn't attacking the crew. He was empathizing. He called out how hard everyone is working, from the garage to catering, and then he quietly underlined the frustration of seeing hard work not turn into speed. That mix of respect and realism is important for fans to hear, because it means Hamilton believes in the people, but he also recognizes the car's limits. So before you type an angry comment about a driver being negative, ask yourself, who benefits from honesty right now? The team that needs to fix things, or the silence that lets problems linger? If you're into clear, no-nonsense takes like this, consider subscribing. We're close to 2,000 subs, and every new subscriber helps us keep these conversations coming. Quick one for the comments. Do you think Ferrari's upgrades have simply failed to work, or are rivals just evolving faster? Vote. Yes, upgrades failed, or no, rivals improved. You caught that line from Lewis, and now let's unpack exactly what he meant. No jargon first, just plain sense. When he talks about the rear axle or says an upgrade didn't stick, he's describing a recurring mismatch between what the engineers expect an upgrade to deliver and what the car actually does on track. In practical terms, that can mean you pick up lap time in one corner but lose it in another, or you improve top speed but wreck tire life. And on a weekend where qualifying gaps are measured in hundredths, those little trade-offs add up to big position losses. Teams chase a setup that lets them extract a perfect lap in qualifying while still having a car that behaves predictably over a race stint. If your baseline is off because an upgrade shifts the balance in an unexpected way, you end up constantly compensating rather than building momentum. Ferrari's problem, as Lewis hinted, isn't a single failure. It's the combination of marginal gains that aren't adding up. Qualifying is where you're punished most. If the car isn't stable on its limit, the driver can't push those final tenths. That instability often points at suspension behavior, aerodynamic wash, or the interaction between the tires and the chassis, the sort of details engineers test and simulate, but which only fully reveal themselves under race stress. And when those stresses show up as overheating brakes or vague rear grip, the driver has to back off, which destroys lap time and translates into starting lower on the grid. Once you start the race from P6 instead of P2, strategy becomes reactive, not proactive. Here's the part that matters for fans. When Hamilton praises the team's effort, but still calls out the car, he's signaling that fixes need both more time and sharper focus. Some solutions are quick. Tweak wing angles, alter brake ducts, change suspension settings. But the bigger ones require new parts or a different development direction, which can't be rushed. So in the short term, you'll see Ferrari chasing setup windows and trying to make the existing upgrades stick. In the medium term, they'll need to reevaluate development priorities, so gains compound instead of canceling each other. If you follow the tech side, tell me in the comments which fix you'd bet on: aero tweaks, mechanical setup, or a directional development change. Vote now. Aero tweaks, yes or no? And remember to hit like and subscribe to push us toward 2,000 subs so we can keep bringing these tech breakdowns straight to you. When you line Ferrari up against the rest of the field, Hamilton's words become even sharper. Think about it. McLaren has taken big steps forward. Mercedes is starting to stitch together consistent pace. And Red Bull, even when not at their peak, still has a margin that protects them from small mistakes. That's the context where Lewis is saying Ferrari's car just isn't at the level. He's not exaggerating. If you're fighting from behind in qualifying, every rival who nails their lap compounds your problem. Qualifying has become the most brutal yardstick. Start in the top 3 and you're in the fight. Start 6th or 7th and you're already playing defense. And when Hamilton openly points out that rivals are building momentum while Ferrari's upgrades aren't translating into results, that's a public warning signal for fans and engineers alike. Now, look at the race scenarios. Ferrari has had moments of strong pace, but those flashes don't turn into podiums if the grid position is compromised. Imagine a driver like Hamilton, Leclerc, or Sainz, starting behind 2 McLarens or a Mercedes. You spend the first laps burning tires just to hold position or fight through instead of chasing the Red Bull at the front. That's why Lewis stressed that the team ends up battling for P4, P6 rather than trophies. It's not that Ferrari is slow everywhere, it's that rivals are stacking consistent improvements while Ferrari keeps running into a ceiling. Even with good pit stops or clever strategies, you can't shortcut raw pace. Fans who remember Ferrari's high points earlier in the season will see the contrast, from fighting for wins to scrapping for top 6 in just a few weekends. The bigger question for you as a fan is how permanent this slide looks. Do you believe Ferrari can claw back with incremental tweaks, or is the gap to rivals widening too fast? Personally, I see Hamilton's honesty as a way of telling us Ferrari is still a top team in effort, but technically behind in execution. That's the gap McLaren and Mercedes are exploiting. Drop your thoughts below. Which rival do you most want to see Ferrari catch? Red Bull, McLaren, or Mercedes? And give me a quick yes or no. Do you think Ferrari can still take a win before the season wraps up? Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We're pushing hard for 2,000 subs, and every new one gets us closer to keeping you updated on these battles as they unfold. So let's talk about what Ferrari can actually do. Not dreams, not PR lines, but real fixes that might change their situation. First, the immediate area Hamilton kept circling back to: the rear axle. That's engineer speak for how the back of the car handles weight transfer, traction, and stability. If the rear doesn't stay planted in fast corners or under braking, the driver has to compromise. Lift earlier, brake longer, or avoid pushing the throttle too aggressively. Short-term, Ferrari can experiment with setup changes, such as adjusting suspension stiffness, tweaking differential settings, or fine-tuning the rear wing. These are weekend-level changes that can help stabilize qualifying pace, though they won't magically unlock half a second. The second layer is upgrades. Hamilton's frustration that they don't stick hints at a disconnect between simulations and reality. Maybe parts work in the wind tunnel, but upset balance on track. For Ferrari, that means they need to refine their correlation, checking whether the car behaves on track as the data predicts. A realistic step here is to simplify upgrades, focusing on one variable at a time. Instead of bringing 5 changes that might clash, bring 1 or 2 that can be isolated and properly understood. That approach might slow headline progress, but builds consistency. The fans won't always see it on TV, but when the car responds exactly as intended, confidence returns for both drivers and engineers. Longer term, the story shifts. If Ferrari wants to break the cycle, they'll need a rethink in development philosophy. That could mean structural changes, new technical hires, different tools, or a fresh design direction for next year's car. Hamilton's tone suggested that while the effort inside Maranello is unquestionable, the results aren't matching that commitment. For us watching, the question becomes, can they afford to stick with their current approach? Or is it time to gamble with bigger moves? That's not an overnight fix. It's the kind of shift that defines the next 2 seasons. For fans, it boils down to this. Do you want Ferrari to prioritize incremental aero tweaks, mechanical reliability fixes, or a bold redesign of their development philosophy? Drop your answer in the comments and give me a quick yes or no. Should Ferrari shake up its staff or stay the course? And of course, hit that subscribe button if you want to follow whether Ferrari actually takes these steps, because we're pushing hard toward our 2,000 subscriber milestone. Looking ahead, the real question is whether Ferrari can recover quickly enough to change the storyline of their season. Hamilton's words carried both frustration and belief. Frustration that the car isn't reflecting the immense work inside Maranello, and belief that the people themselves remain world-class. That's an important distinction. He's not saying Ferrari lacks talent or dedication. He's saying the machinery they've been given is capping their potential. For fans, that's both disappointing and hopeful. It means the ceiling is higher than what we've seen, but it also means we might not get there until a deeper technical shift takes place. If you're wondering what to expect in the next races, don't look for miracles. Expect Ferrari to keep scrapping around P4 to P6 unless qualifying gets unlocked. Podium shots will exist if rivals stumble or safety cars shuffle the order, but consistently fighting Red Bull, McLaren, or even Mercedes requires bigger gains. Hamilton knows this, which is why he was so blunt. You can't pretend upgrades are working when the stopwatch says otherwise. At the same time, there's always that wild card. In F1, circuits where tire wear, weather, or track layout masks weaknesses and suddenly gives you a shot. That's why, even in a tough stretch, Ferrari fans should stay locked in, because one breakthrough weekend could rewrite the tone. The bigger picture is this. Ferrari needs to decide if they're building just to survive the season or laying groundwork for the car that will finally put them back on equal footing. The way Hamilton framed it, the car we have is not at the level of this team, should be taken as a challenge. A challenge to management, to the design office, and to the leadership to ensure that the pride of Ferrari matches the performance. For you watching, that's where the passion of being a fan comes alive. You've stuck with this team through highs and lows, and now your perspective matters. I want to hear it in the comments. What's your one-sentence prediction for Ferrari's next race? Do you see a podium, or do you think they'll stay in the P4, P6 fight? And give me a quick yes or no. Will Ferrari win at least one race this season? Don't forget to subscribe and hit like, because we're building this community toward 2,000 subs, and I want you with us when Ferrari either turns this story around or teaches us another hard lesson. Stay tuned, because the next chapter in this saga is coming fast.